Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I've got a very special guest, Dr. Martin Bastuba. He is a fellowship-trained urologist practicing down in San Diego, and his fellowship training and focus is on male infertility and sexual dysfunction. One of the interesting things that he does is post-mortem sperm retrievals, and so that's what I'm really excited to have the chance to kind of talk to him about today. So, Dr. Bastuba, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Dr. Chan, for the nice introduction. Yeah, so I'm just a simple guy from Detroit, Michigan, that got into medicine and fell in love with fertility. And I've been in San Diego area now for nearly 30 years. My practice is largely doing sexual dysfunction and reproductive medicine of all sorts, sperm retrievals and such on living patients. But a number of years ago, I attended a scientific meeting, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, and I heard a very interesting panel discussion about PMSR, post-mortem sperm retrievals. And that was headed up by Peter Schlegel at Cornell. And it turns out that Cornell had spent a tremendous amount of time and effort on the ethics of post-mortem sperm retrieval, the technical aspects of it, and I was just absolutely fascinated by it and took a lot of notes and spoke with him and then didn't do a whole lot until a few years later. Here in San Diego, we have a large military base, and there were some people who had done heroic things in foreign countries and then came back to the US and maybe did some not so smart things and ended up passing at a young age with wives and families that were so distraught. And I started getting calls from them and others, but the first real thing was military people young people who had passed away. They were trying to start a family together, and I was being called with a request, could I retrieve some sperm for them? And that is post-mortem sperm retrieval. That's what it entails in large part.
Yeah, can you kind of run me through the process of maybe what does it look like when you're called to, when you get that phone call from somebody to go obtain it?
Yeah, so it's definitely a team effort. Various staff members. Mel Cohen is one of our team members who typically these days gets the call and does some of the main legwork. Again, everything we do, we try to do by certain standards, and we really try to follow the standards from Cornell, where we there this would be a wife, or well, in California, common law marriage occurs fairly rapidly, so that this is a known spousal life partner. That's one requirement. Typically, they are who's calling, or maybe a very close family member is calling. There is more knowledge about it in the general public, which is helping for people to even realize that this is a possibility. So we field that call, and the first thing we want to know is how long has the person been deceased? How did things occur, to get some idea of the possibility if there may still be viable sperm. Then we also want to know, was there an intent from the to start a family with their partner? And that is a very important aspect of things, that we want to pay respect to that person and make sure that it was their intent. Furthermore, we want to make sure that it was known not only to their partner, their life partner, but also to their family members. We want to make sure that on both sides were aware of this, that they are supportive of this, and other family members are supportive of this. We want this to be an agreed upon situation where everyone is in agreement that that was the plan, that that was the wish. And then we are more off to the races in terms of the logistics of actually making things happen once we've worked through the ethics.
Mhm. And then can you talk a little bit about logistically what happens when you're retrieving it and kind of where does the tissue end up?
Sure. So right now, we service all of California. Uh, it's not unusual for me to hop on a plane and fly to San Jose. I did that a couple, three times last year. For whatever reason, San Jose was calling. But when we get the call, we are immediately trying to, again, once we've worked out the ethics, now it's the logistics in terms of how are we going to get tissue. And so this has been a operation out of my practices. We have various practices, my private practice, male fertility specialist. Then we also have Fertility Center of California, which would do the tissue processing,
Mhm.
extracting the sperm. And once we have the sperm extracted, then it would be transferred to the family fertility cryo bank. But
Mhm.
wait, there's more. We now have created the PMSR Network, Post-Mortem Sperm Retrieval Network, which is a network of California physicians that are on board, know how to do a sperm retrieval, and can make things happen more readily. And we're expanding that network to try to cover all of California in a pretty expedient fashion. We like to try to retrieve sperm within 24 hours if possible, but the reality is, depending on the conditions, we've retrieved sperm up to 72 hours after death, so that we have some leeway there, especially depending on how the body, uh, again, how things occurred and how the body has been taken care of since the passing has occurred.
Mhm. And I imagine this must be a pretty emotional kind of situation. How do you usually find the family kind of reacts to this whole process?
You know, Robert, I must say that people, when they hear about this from the outside, they're like, wait a minute, what are they doing here? Are they taking advantage of people? Somebody when they're weak. And I must say, in my experience, it is precisely and exactly the opposite. These are people who have had something, generally something very traumatic occur. We are the one bright spot in the whole situation. We are the only hope that they have in what is a very traumatic situation.
Mhm.
And so, yes, they oftentimes are very challenged emotionally. And again, a lot of times there's another family member, a sister, a brother, who is help guiding things through. We have the paperwork fairly well worked out, though, so that it is all pretty easy for things to happen. And another part of the ethics of this is we require a year moratorium before the tissue can be accessed to allow for the loved one to have time to regain their composure, to be able to come to some terms from the loss of their loved one before we allow access to use the tissue. And furthermore, we also require that they are evaluated by a psychologist or another trained professional to be able to evaluate them and make sure that they've had adequate grieving, that they are of sound mind, and that they're making a sound decision and not just something that is in response to trauma and not well thought out. So
Mhm.
all these things are in place. Now, if the female is 37 years of age or more, consider release of the tissue earlier, but again, they're still going to need clearance from a trained professional to say that yes, they are of sound mind, that they've thought things through, and they're not just doing this as a reflex move from emotion.
Mhm. Oh, that's interesting. And then my last question is, I know you're trying to build this PMSR network. Kind of what was the motivation to kind of try to expand these services out through California?
Again, the more that I've done this, the more deeply I feel that it offers a true service to these people. We've tried to make it financially reasonable for people to move forward with it. Because everything is in-house, we can keep our costs down significantly. And I can only do so much over a given period of time. And so having a network of physicians allows the couple, we still take care at our main practice, well, PMSR Network in this case, the ethics, making sure that we've got things right. But then having physicians throughout the state that know how to do the technique of sperm retrieval, which is pretty straightforward for a trained urologist, a surgeon, uh, it allows us to make things more convenient for people, and they're still transferred to our, what I believe is a world-class lab that can extract the sperm, freeze the sperm,
Hmm.
and then take care of it for long-term storage, so that I think it just makes things smoother and more readily available for people.
Hmm.
And
And
I would
then,
say we have
mhm.
a 1-800 number, which is 888-233-7492. Or you could reach out to us at Mel at Fertility Center, that's fertilityctr.com. And that gets the ball rolling if people are interested in finding out more. And we also have a website, which is just
CMR.
psmrnetwork.com.
Great. Um, and then is there any like specific case that kind of like jumps out at you, like when you kind of think back to
Well,
a
there's a
certain
very
situation or anything?
recent case. They're all gut wrenchers. I must tell you, Robert. It is, and again, this is part to me what it is to be a physician, to have compassion for people in their, a moment of extreme need. Uh, a recent physician in training
Hmm.
whose wife was also in training. Uh, I won't say the city. Uh, Called out noise in his backyard, goes out to see what's going on. And the next thing his wife knows, she hears a gunshot. She goes back out to their backyard where apparently there were some homeless encampment type of a thing going on. She finds him there in a pool of blood, and we get called in. A lovely young couple, a guy with everything to live for that, I don't know, nobody knows exactly what happened. All we know is that it was a homeowner responding to noise. And
Hmm.
these are the type of events that occur that never should occur, but sadly do occur. And they were, this is a couple that was trying to start a family together, trying to build their future. And so they have not uh, even past the point of being able to try to access tissue. I guess the other thing that I would bring up are we have three live births from stored tissue over the years. I've been doing this now, I should say we have been doing this as a team now for probably about 20 years.
Hmm.
Uh, we have three live births. It's not that usual that the tissue is ever accessed, but it is universal that the family is very thankful that this hope was given to them. I find it to be a healing tool for someone that feels everything has been removed from them. They still have a thread of hope left. And I think that alone is healing to them and helps them with their grieving. So that, but occasionally there is the thought that after the dust has settled, that yes, I guess the news there is fertility is possible. Now it requires in vitro fertilization, baby in guy talk. This
Mhm.
is where the sperm are injected into eggs that have been removed from a female, so it's done outside the body. In vitro means in glass, so it's in a glass petri dish outside the body. And so pregnancies can occur. There is some expense to doing in vitro that is not covered at time. The vast majority of the time, the tissues are not used. But when it is needed, it can be successful for people. And in vitro fertilization has a very high success rate, especially it's more dependent on health than it is on the sperm. As long as we have movement in the sperm when we freeze it, it will likely thaw well and work well with in vitro fertilization.
Great. Anything else you want to share that you think might be interesting or important to know about?
Well, I would thank you for the opportunity to get to talk about this topic. I can, again, to me, in my life, it has been universally a welcome and useful tool for couples, well, I guess for survivors of relationships who have this type of a horrible incident occur. And I appreciate the opportunity to try to help more people with this. And as it's things like this program that help more people to become aware of the issue so that when these things happen, and sadly they do keep happening, we at least have some opportunity to be of some service for the couple. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on and just kind of bringing this awareness. I think for most people, they don't even know that something like this or this service exists. So this is great.
It can be done, and I think should be done if the circumstances are correct and if it's appropriate. We do turn down some cases. We have parents that just want us to do it, and the ethic is that did their child, was that wish that their
Mhm.
family without their consent, without their knowledge, and I can't in good faith say that I would agree with that. So others they'll retrieve anything, but we try to follow the guidelines that were set down by Cornell a number of years ago, and I think are very appropriate still.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, thank you very much for your time, Dr. Bastuba.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.